G'day guys, how's it all going? So in this video, we're going to look at an executable tool for Rust called Cargo, and this tool will be used for the remaining videos going forward. We will no longer just use the direct Rust commands. So what is Cargo? Well, essentially Cargo is a build system and package manager that Rust has developed to basically create simple Rust applications, but in a way that we'll be able to extend it in the future with other libraries and conventions and things of that nature, right? So it has baked into it uh, some build tools as well as some tools to create projects, workspaces, and other things. But we're just going to keep this simple in this video, and we're just going to look at a couple of commands that we'll need up front. So the first thing we want to do is just make sure Cargo is in fact installed, which it would have been installed when you installed Rust. And to check that, I'm just going to type cargo -- version. And you can see that basically I have version 1.76 installed on my Linux machine. Now, what Cargo can also do is it can actually create a project for you by running the cargo new command. So I'm just going to simply just type here cargo new and then the name of the project that I want. So I'm going to call it hello cargo. And now what that's done is that's gone off and created a folder called hello cargo. So if I go ls here, you'll see now I have a hello cargo folder. If I cd into that, like so, and then I just open up VS Code, and I'm just going to close the old one and put this one up on the left-hand side. 1 second. So now you can see that we have a set of files and folders that were associated to that new project creation. So there's not much here, but we start off with a source folder or an SRC folder, which is pretty standard for most applications. And inside there, we've got our main.rs file, and that contains the exact snippet that we saw before with our other Hello World application. What we also get is some Git related stuff. So we've got a git ignore file, which just tells Git, if we ever check this into source control, to ignore the target folder, which we'll see what this is in a minute. Then we have this special cargo.toml file. And this file is essentially in a format that's called the TOML language. It stands for Tom's Obvious Minimal Language. And this is basically the language we'll be using to edit this file. Now, what this file contains is what we call package data. So we've got package there. And the current name of this package is the name that we gave when we went cargo new. The version is 0.1.0 by default. And then we have this addition thing. So this addition thing is essentially the compiler that we're using, the Rust compiler that we're using, and we're using Rust compiler version 2021. Below that, down on line 8, we have what's referred to as dependencies. And later on, what we'll be doing is adding some dependencies in here, and you will see how they get loaded based on typing them here. But for now, we're just going to leave that. So that's pretty much the project structure that you get out of the box when you decide to create a project using the cargo new command. Now to build this, right, we can use the cargo command tool again, because we're inside the hello cargo folder. I can go cargo build. And what this does now, it will trigger a compilation. As you can see here, it's saying compiling package name, package version, which in our case is hello cargo and version 0.1.0. And then you'll see it finished, but it was unoptimized and it's in what we call a debug info state. So when we run the build, what we're doing here by default, by just running cargo build, we're building the application code for debugging. Now, I'm not going to show you how to debug in this video, but basically at the moment, the code that's there can be debugged. Now, where the code goes is it goes into this target folder. And inside target, we have the debug folder. And inside there, you now can see the Hello Cargo application, right? So what that means is we can run it from that location. So if we now go /target/debug/hello cargo, you'll see that we execute the hello world. And this is similar to what we saw in the previous video when I was testing the tool out, right? So that's all baked into this target debug folder. Now, this is why we have a git ignore file, right? We're excluding that folder from source control. So we only want this folder to appear when we compile it, right? Now, the process I just did, right, took two phases, right? We had to build it using cargo build, and then we had to manually go to that file and run it, all right? And then we saw it. But honestly, most of the time, what we want to do is we just want to build and run the application at the same time, right? So just going to load the code here. So if we want to run this code again, but not have to do both a build then a run, we can use the command cargo run, like so. Now this will essentially do the same thing. It'll take the code that's unoptimized in debug, and it will just run, as you can see here, running target debug hello cargo. And there's the result, right? What you don't see is there wasn't a compilation, right? And the reason why there wasn't a compilation is that cargo detected that there were no code changes, and it just decided to run what was already in the target folder. So if we remove that, like so, right, and I'm just going to clear the screen. If I now go cargo run again, now it's going to show the message that it's actually compiling hello cargo. Then it finishes it, and then it runs it, right? So now we have a tool that will basically compile it if things change. It will also work if we change the code, right? So at the moment, if I run this again, we can see there's no compilation step, right? However, if I come over and I change it from, say, hello world to hello Daryl and save and run this again, now you can see it detected the change and ran a compilation. So that's how the the run tool works, right? It's a build and run, but it's only build and run based on the fact that something has changed, which is good, right? It's kind of what we want. We don't want to have to build the code every time we want to run it if the code hasn't changed. So that's great. That's one thing. Now, the other thing that we need to understand is that this is a debug build, but we can also do a release build. So that looks a little something like this. So just say you want to build the code for production deployment. You'll go cargo build -- release, like so. And now it will compile the code, as you can see here. And then it will say finished release optimized, right? So now the code's been optimized without all the extra stuff that it needs to debug it. And therefore, it should run faster when you run it in or on the server that you're going to run it on, okay? Which could be this one or it could be some other Linux machine. But essentially, you can take what's in this target folder, this hello cargo, right? For the most part, or at least for this application, you could copy that, send it to a friend, and they could execute it on their Ubuntu Linux system, right? So that's the benefit of that. Now, you could do the same thing with using cargo run. So if I go cargo run -- release, it will do the same thing, right? It will, well, it doesn't need to compile because it already compiled, but it will also run it in release mode. So you can test it on your local environment too when it's optimized for release. So that's that. That's how you do release management. Now, if you just want to go through the process of just checking to see if your code compiles rather than actually doing a build. So say in this case, I'm going to go back a few steps and just remove the target folder. If I just want to check that my code compiles instead of actually building the code, then I can run a cargo check, right? And what this do, will go through all the source and it'll check that it can be compiled or built, right? It won't actually build it. Now, it does generate a target folder, but what you'll see in the debug folder is that there is no actual executable to run. Now, why would we ever do this? Why do we care to run a check instead of an actual build? Well, it's because it's faster. So sometimes you just want to clarify that you haven't got a compilation issue and you don't want the build to take forever. So you could just do something like cargo check, and it'll check, and then so on and so forth, right? Now I should make a compilation error here. You can have a semicolon missing. So if I now do this, you'll get there's an error, right? And it won't actually try to build. It'll just do a syntax check. So that's that. What else is there? I think that's pretty much most of what you need to know in terms of the basic parts. We'll go through more as we go along, but I think for the most part, this is all you need to know for now. So I'm going to end this video. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time.